is where I'm going to end my TOCFL explanation and start my sort of discussion of how I learned Chinese. I hope it's useful for you, or if it's not useful, then it's at least somewhat interesting, and that I'm not just, talking myself up for anything. So first of all, it's really important to remember that everyone does learn at a different rate, especially with foreign languages. It will massively depend on the languages you already know. We had a little bit of a running joke in my Chinese class that all of the Japanese students had a huge advantage because they could read everything and we couldn't. So it really does depend on what you've learned before, what your mother tongue is, things like that. So when I started studying Chinese properly, I already spoke fluent Korean and German. I'd watched a lot of Chinese TV shows, and that's really not to be underestimated. So I had a fair amount of sort of language learning practice and experience that really did help me quite a lot. So this is sort of my timeline for learning Chinese, I guess. I said at the beginning of the presentation that it was really on and off. All of the red stuff here is the time I didn't study at all. So although I started studying 5 years ago, I've actually only been properly studying for about 3.5 years and studying with sort of consistency for about 1.5 years. And I've done pretty much everything. I've done self-study, I've done private tutoring, I've done classes at university, and I did go to language school in Taiwan as well. Because it's a little bit complicated and all over the place, I decided not to sort of go bit by bit and explain what I did at each stage of learning Chinese. Instead, I'm going to sort of zero in on some major issues or concerns that I think people have learning Chinese, certainly that I have learning Chinese, and give you some recommendations on how to overcome those difficulties perhaps and study Chinese a little bit more effectively. But first, I'll give you a quick insight into my TOCFL exam preparation journey. It's probably the most pertinent part. So this was starting in September last year. That's when I decided that I knew I was coming to Taiwan and I was going to be taking a placement test for the National Taiwan University Language School. I had done HSK 3 and 4 in October the year before. So in 2023, I did both of those tests. But it was very much cram for the exam and forget everything the day after, which I'm sure most people have experience of. And I'd really forgotten every single character I'd ever learned. So although I actually studied simplified characters to begin with, starting in about September last year, I studied traditional characters from like the absolute super basic, like hao, bu hao, really, really basic stuff from the very beginning again. And I just sort of powered through all of the words that I knew what they meant, but I could not read or write them. And during that, I managed to test into a sort of B1 level, which is about level 3 in the TOCFL test. And then I started my sort of language studies in Taiwan. Actually, the biggest thing Taiwan did for my language was not to do with the course at all. It was the fact that it stopped me being scared of speaking because I was more scared of coming across as the rude person who doesn't even try to speak the local language after living there for half a year. So that was pretty useful. But apart from that, we did cover quite a lot of material in the 2 semesters that I studied at NTU. We used a course in Contemporary Chinese, book 3 for my first term. We did chapters 7 to 10, and then we moved on to Taiwan Duoshijia, or multicultural perspectives on Taiwan. And I did chapters 1 to 3. And then in my second semester, I did chapters 7 to 12 of that book. So I did skip a couple in the middle. If you're looking for a textbook for that sort of B2-ish level, I really do recommend Multicultural Perspectives on Taiwan. It's somewhat interesting and it's well set out and explained. So I think you can't really go too wrong with that. That was pretty much my entire TOCFL preparation though, because my TOCFL exam was 10 days after finishing the course. So you can absolutely prepare for TOCFL mostly through your normal textbook. You don't have to use TOCFL specific materials. I did a little bit. I did about a couple of pages, one chapter from a vocab and TOCFL prep book for the Band B, which is level 4. And then I did a couple of practice tests, again, at the Band B level 4 at level. And then I did a couple of the CAT mock exams. I really do wish I did more mock exams because I found the test quite difficult, and I found the test very sort of energy draining. The texts at the higher levels are long, the listening sections are long, and I found myself forgetting what was being said or just zoning out. So I really do recommend doing more than a couple of mock tests before the exam. It will help you a lot. But as you can probably see from my sort of preparation strategy, I was really expecting a level 4, and in the end, I managed to get a level 5, which I was in a little bit of shock about for a whole month. Because they do give you the test if you do the CAT test. They give you the test results at the end of the test, but you can't write any notes and take any notes with you or take a photo or anything. So I was like, did I see it wrong? Did I see it wrong? Until the actual results came out much later, I was in disbelief. But it was scraping a level 5. You can see that my listening was actually a level 4. The cutoff for level 5 is 600 and I got 595. And then for the reading, the cutoff is 610 and I got 615. So a little bit below, a little bit above, evens out to level 5. And actually, this is a really important point because my listening skills in real life are better than my reading skills. And this is because the listening test really requires you to be able to listen for a long period of time, take notes, remember information, and then answer questions. Often you don't know the question beforehand. So really, really practice your listening, even if you think your listening is generally pretty good, because it's not just about, can I understand what I'm hearing? It's also, can I understand and remember what I'm hearing, which is a lot harder than you might think, especially in a foreign language. So just something to be aware of, that you do have a bit more wiggle room with the reading to reread things and use a bit of exam strategy. Listening, not so much. Another important thing to note is that I said I found the exam really hard, and that's because I took the CAT exam and I was doing well. When I took the Band B level 4 tests, I found them fairly easy, and I was getting most things correct. But I found the questions for the level 5 really, really hard. And when I was taking my exam, they were only showing me really, really hard questions that I genuinely didn't understand half of. That means you're doing a good job. You probably answered lots of things correctly, so just don't panic. You can try answering to the best of your ability. If you think it's taking too long and you're not going to answer enough questions, you can just pick your favorite letter and move on. This is kind of why you should do some mock tests to get a feel of how much time you should allot for things. And things like that. Not so much in listening, obviously, because you've got a set amount of time, but in reading, where it's more self-paced. The most important thing, though, is don't give up and don't think, I don't understand any of this question, I'm going to fail. It probably just means you got the previous question correct. Take some confidence from it and move on. So that's probably it for the very TOCFL specific advice. I want to give some advice on learning Chinese in general as well. After all, it is a test of your Chinese skill. So if you can improve your Chinese, generally you'll also improve your result, and also help you translate your test result into your real life Chinese skills. I think one popular concern would be finding a way to learn with a teacher. It is a lot easier now, obviously, because we have the internet. So you can find online classes, for example, one-on-one classes somewhere like italki or Amazing Talker. But if you want something from a sort of accredited university, I'm pretty sure that the National Taiwan University's Chinese language division do also offer online one-to-one tuition. And of course, the most immersive option is to come to Taiwan and do one of the short courses. There's lots of universities that offer them. NTU is popular. NTNU, which is National Taiwan Normal University, is extremely popular, but there are other universities as well. And if you are interested in coming to Taiwan for 3 or 6 months to study Taiwanese, to study Mandarin rather, please do check out the Huayu Enrichment Scholarship. This is a government scholarship and it will give you some money to support yourself whilst you're studying in Taiwan. What's really important to note is that the application period is in February to April. Doesn't matter what time of year you want to go, you have to apply during this period. I went in November and lots of people that went at the same time as me were getting the scholarship, but I found out about it after the application period and I couldn't apply for it. So don't be like me. Be like my classmates who were getting money to study Mandarin and check out the Huayu Enrichment Scholarship. It really is worth it, and it makes obviously learning a language in a foreign country a lot more accessible to a wider range of people. So I think it's a really great initiative and you should definitely take as much advantage of it as you can. Another common issue, I think, for a lot of Chinese learners, and something that might particularly worry you if you're going to be coming to Taiwan to study, for example, or maybe you just want to speak with some local Mandarin speakers in your area, is that you can't understand anything you hear. And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do about that except practicing. The good thing is that that practice can absolutely be fun. Listening comprehension is 90% input. So you don't need to speak, you just need to listen, and you need to listen a lot. I always recommend just binge watching everything you possibly can in the language you're learning, especially if it's audio visual. That means the image is going to help you understand what you hear. Because the really important thing to know is at the beginning, when you know nothing, you're just going to read the subtitles. There's no way around it. You wouldn't understand anything. But the more you learn and the more you understand, the more you can listen critically. You can find patterns and you can actually learn a lot of vocab and grammar just by listening and watching TV shows, dramas. If you don't like dramas, that's not a problem. You can watch YouTube videos. You can follow Chinese speakers on social media. And if you are finding it too difficult to watch without subtitles, you can absolutely do this with subtitles as well. Just make sure that you're trying to actually spot those reoccurring patterns and things. You might also notice that I do have a lot of costume dramas, so like historical dramas here. I personally prefer watching historical dramas to modern dramas, and you might worry that you'll start sounding like you're from the 16th century or something. I wouldn't worry too much. Your Chinese class is probably teaching you modern Chinese. It's just about training your ear and getting it used to the sounds and not freaking out every time you hear some Chinese and thinking, I don't understand what's going on, and giving you a little bit of that confidence. One thing that drama watching can't help you with, though, is reading the characters. Unfortunately, you do just have to memorize that. And I actually really struggle with flashcards, which I know is a lot of people's favorite way to memorize things in language learning, especially using sort of spaced repetition, which if you don't know what it is, it's basically forgetting things on purpose and then learning them again so you remember them better. But it puts me to sleep. I genuinely find it extremely exhausting. So I decided to use Scritter, which is an app where you can actually handwrite the characters as you do your flashcards. So it's a little bit more difficult, it keeps you more awake, but it also helps you actually learn how to write, which might not be your number one sort of goal if you're typing all the time, but it actually does help you remember how to recognize the characters in the long term. So it's something to look into. Unfortunately, it is a paid subscription, but I do think there are a couple of free alternatives. This is just the one that I found had the best sort of UI, but I recommend you look into free alternatives if you would struggle with the cost of it. Speaking of free, I do have some free things for you. So if your reading speed is slow, you're going to struggle with the TOCFL test. This was my issue. I just couldn't read fast enough to keep up. So you need to just read a lot. Obviously, you can read the news, you can read your textbook. But if you want to read something a bit more fun so that you can read a lot, you might want to try some novels. Books.com.tw does ship abroad, but if you're more interested in sort of web novels or something like that, or you just think your level's not quite there yet, you can also try the Readaboo app. It will sort of let you import, or you can find on the app any sort of web novel in either simplified or traditional characters. It will change them for you if it's not in the one you prefer. And then you can pick the level of support you want. So for example, you can have the pinyin showing, or you can have it so you have to tap for the pinyin and the meaning. Either way, it will give you a bit of support there. There are also freebies like Pleco and Reverso for looking up definitions and how words are used in context, as well as the Chinese Grammar Wiki for explanations of grammar in English. So you don't need to buy lots of expensive textbooks just to learn the grammar, and you definitely don't need to be carrying a 500 kilo dictionary around with you all the time. But I do recommend using Pleco together with Reverso. Sometimes the examples in Pleco aren't the most natural in the world. And finally, even if you're only taking the listening and reading test, don't forget to speak and write as well, or you're going to have a really big problem later when you've got like level 6 listening and reading and you still can't form a sentence. It will be a pain to sort of bring those levels up. And also it's really hard to learn new vocab and things if you're never actually using it and you're only ever reading and writing it. That's all for my presentation today. I really hope it's helpful to some people, and I just hope that everyone doesn't give up with learning Chinese. You can do it even if you took lots and lots of breaks and lots of details along the way like I did. Thank you very much.